Hello and welcome to CSGV at Home. My name is Andrew Patrick, and I am the Director of Political Communications at the Coalition to Stop Gun Violence. And today we are speaking with our Tennessee student organizer for the Coalition to Stop Gun Violence and Educational Fund to Stop Gun Violence, Cierra Hinckson. Cierra, I want to welcome you back to CSGV at Home.
Hi, Andrew. Thanks for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
Oh, yeah. So tell me a little bit about the work that you're doing in Tennessee and some of the organizations you're collaborating with and the work that they do.
Yeah, so I'm a student organizer in Tennessee, and I'm a part of our Engaging Impacted Communities team. So I'm working to connect community members and grassroots organizations, students, faith leaders with the tools to empower their advocacy through programmatic and policy solutions. So right now I'm working with a couple really great organizations. One I'm working with is called Nashville Peacemakers, which is led by a Nashville native, and they work to give youth and distressed neighborhoods basic life skills and build up self-confidence and present them with enriching opportunities as peaceful alternatives to violence. And one other organization that I'm working with is called NOAH, which is short for Nashville Organized for Action and Hope. So they're a diverse interdenominational faith-led coalition, and they're made up of congregations and community organizations, labor unions, and their goal is to uplift marginalized communities through political activism and civic and economic engagement. So right now I'm working with some leaders in those groups to try to connect their members with the tools to advocate for safer life promoting communities.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's fantastic, the work that you're doing with these groups and just coordinating. I assume you're working with them and watching some of these bills that are coming up in the Tennessee legislature. There's VIP funding, which is extremely important, but also probably there's permitless carry and stand your ground, which are dangerous legislations that you're kind of organizing to oppose and to prevent from going into law. Can you just tell me a little bit about the work with those bills?
Yeah, absolutely. So our first bill, which is one that we're really hoping to get passed, is it is a violence intervention and prevention funding bill. So through this bill, the Tennessee Violence Intervention Program will be created within the Office of Criminal Justice. And this will invest in evidence-based violence reduction initiatives in disproportionately impacted communities. So this would look like investment in a lot of urban centers like Memphis and Nashville, which disproportionately experience community violence. So this bill would be really great because it would provide the opportunity to hold public forums and gather community input regarding the program, and then distribute these grants to municipalities, health agencies, law enforcement agencies, and nonprofit organizations. So this is a really great bill that we're hoping can get passed. Some of the other bills, which are a little bit not so good in Tennessee, we have a permitless carry bill, which this bill would allow for anyone that is in legal possession of a firearm and is not prohibited from owning a firearm, for example, because we're past felony, to carry without a permit. So anyone over the age of 21, or if you are in the military, anyone over the age of 18, which can be really dangerous because we want to make sure that guns don't get into the wrong hands. And then another bill, which is something to watch out for, it's not gaining too much traction in the legislature, but it's part of a pattern of bills popping up across the country, is a stand your ground bill. So with this bill, it would allow for the use of deadly force to protect property, not even against like a threat of life, but if there's a threat to property, you're allowed to use deadly force. So like I said, it's not gaining that much traction in the legislature, but it's a part of like a pattern of these really, frankly, racist bills popping up across the country in response to the Black Lives Matter movement.
We talked about that bill on our last episode and how it's kind of a trend that's kind of happened in response to really a social justice movement, this license to kill Black and brown Americans. And it's out front, it's in front of the public, and it is being passed in states like Arkansas, up in Tennessee. Florida has an even more extreme version that says let you define who's a looter and then take action against them. So it's very dangerous and very concerning. But on the VIP funding,
Yes.
Why is this violence intervention funding important to the work that you're doing in Nashville?
Yeah, so violence intervention and prevention funding is really important because it's a proactive way to focus on violence reduction. So it takes some of the focus off of punitive and policing measures. And we've seen it work before in New York City, in Oakland, in Philadelphia, with New York City's Office to Prevent Gun Violence. Shootings were reduced by 40% from 2010 to 2019. So programs like this are working across the country. So it would be really beneficial to bring it to an urban center like Nashville, which is disproportionately experiencing violence. And it's also important because it engages community members in the protection and decision-making process, right? So we have street outreach models like the Cure Violence model, which was started in Chicago, and that involves people in the neighborhood who are working to interrupt violence before it escalates. So it works not only to prevent violence, but rebuild these lost community bonds. And it's also important because a lot of models like hospital-based intervention models, which have been implemented in like Baltimore, for example, work to address trauma. So it's not only the violence, but the physical and the mental effects that violence can have on a person. And that's really important when it comes to trying to get to the root of these systemic issues, is addressing the intergenerational trauma that it causes.
Yeah, how it just like disseminates through the violence disseminates through an entire community
Exactly.
and exacerbates more violence. And that's why we need funding like this to, like you say, get at the root causes that are driving this issue. So yeah, it's
Exactly.
extremely important. If the funding is passed, how would it help promote equity in your work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it would be really important in promoting equity because it would address some of the systemic disinvestment that is at the root of gun violence, like we just talked about, right? So equity is about access to opportunities. So when we look at programs that can provide wraparound services, social services like housing and mental health services and opportunities for employment, that can kind of address some of this historical disinvestment. And then with models that do involve policing, it's about procedurally just policing. So if officers can use evidence-based tactics to target small pockets of individuals that are causing violence, then it won't, the tactics like stop and frisk, which are wide-reaching and just they're not procedurally just, these tactics won't have to be implemented. And also, I think it's just important to think about the ways in which the gun violence movement in the past has kind of focused on school shootings, which are super important, but mostly affect white suburban areas. So if we want to broaden our scope and we want to think about communities that are disproportionately experiencing violence, a bill like this will help invest in those communities. For example, in Tennessee, Black men aged 15 to 34 are 16 times more likely to die of a firearm than their white counterparts. So it's really important that we figure out what communities need help the most, what communities need help right now, and we invest in them. So I think that this bill will be a really strong way to promote equity.
Yeah, and we learned in Virginia, if you get in and you put in the legwork and fund these type of programs, you can do it anywhere in the country. Tennessee is not known as a friendly gun violence prevention state, but if we put in the work you're doing and the work you're doing with these other organizations, you can build from that, and then maybe it won't be this legislature, but it could be the 2028 legislature or something like that, where we start to see movement on this issue, and hopefully that this funding is a good place to start that. So, so for our supporters in Tennessee and elsewhere who want to be involved, what can they do to engage and support both getting this funding passed and also your work?
Mm-hmm. So for any of our supporters, residents of Tennessee, you can reach out to your elected officials and you can discuss with them why they need to shepherd these bills to passage, specifically the VIP bill. You can reach out to them and let them know the dangers of bills like Stand Your Ground and Permitless Carry. You can also reach out to organizations like us, like the Educational Fund to Stop Gun Violence, CSGV, and other gun violence prevention organizations to get educated on what gun violence looks like in your respective city, and the tools that you can use to advocate. You can talk to your friends and family and tell them about the things that you have learned. And if you are interested in organizing a workshop to learn about how what gun violence looks like and the ways in which you can advocate, you can reach out to us at the Tennessee Community Advocacy Network, and our email is tencan@efsgv.org, and you can organize a workshop with us.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much, Cierra. It was good talking to you again, and thank you for the update from the volunteer state. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Andrew. It was great to talk to you.
All right. Thank you.